Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 7 of virtual learning. Yesterday, you read The Secret to Raising Smart Kids by Carol Dweck, and you learned about growth mindset and fixed mindset. Growth mindset, of course, is where when you encounter a failure, you will keep trying. You view the brain can grow. It's just based on how much effort you're going to put behind it to grow your brain. A fixed mindset believes you only have so much, and if you encounter failure, just give up. But no, the fixed mindset, even though people have a fixed mindset, is not true. The growth mindset is the thing that is true. You can grow your brain, you can get smarter. It's based on how much effort you put on behind it. The more hard work you put into something, the more effort you get put into something, the better you will become at it. And so that is what the growth mindset is, and it is a vital thing to become successful. Today, we're going to move forward in our success unit. We're going to be exploring some literacy narratives in which both of the individuals we're going to be reading about exhibit a growth mindset. They have to have a growth mindset. They put forth this effort. They grow their brains in order to gain success. Now, the best way I can explain, literacy, most people think that's just reading and writing, and there's a little bit more to that. Literacy is just understanding, and whenever you're competent and able to do something, because it's not just exclusive to being able to read and write. You can be literate in a wide variety of things. The best example I can give you is probably like a video game once again. A video game tutorial to be more exact. Technically, if you're in a video game, you could just play that tutorial for hours upon hours on end, and you're kind of just stuck in that first opening area. But once you have performed the skills necessary to unlock the new area, so once you have become literate, all of a sudden a whole new and wider world is opened up for you. And you have more opportunities and more things that you can possibly do with it. And that's what becoming literate is, that you go from the world being this small and a whole new giant world is opened up to you. So we're going to read The Joys of Reading and Writing, Superman and Me by Sherman Alexie. And we're also going to be reading Learning to Read, an excerpt from the autobiography of Malcolm X. These are both literacy narratives, and both individuals show a growth mindset throughout and become successful because of their growth mindset. So what I'm going to want you to do is read both of these. I'm going to talk to you about certain parts of these before I just let you just go crazy with them by yourself. Read both of these, and then I want you to, in at least 200 words, similar to yesterday with the Carol Dweck article, in 200 words, I want you to explain to me how the Sherman Alexie and Malcolm X excerpts pieces explore the idea of success. So the same thing as yesterday. You're not going to be writing 400 words total. It's just 200 words over both of these pieces combined. And how do they both look at success, how they explore success, and how do they talk about success? That's the main thing I'm looking for from this. And let's actually jump into it a little bit. I can't read them out loud to you because I post these on YouTube, and then YouTube will take them down because that is a violation of copyright and all that fun stuff. But I do want you to pay attention to the introductions and the conclusions and what they do, because Sherman Alexie, Malcolm X, and Alex Haley. Alex Haley helped write Malcolm X's autobiography because Malcolm X died and couldn't finish it. All of them are writers. You are a writer. Everybody that writes is a writer. And so these people are your peers. They are doing the same thing that you're doing. They're a little bit more successful at it. They're a little bit more experienced and a little bit more polished at it. But at the end of the day, they are still writing just like you are writing. So you can learn from them by interacting with their writing and thinking about your writing up against theirs. So look at how they introduce topics. Look at how they develop ideas. Look at how they write conclusions. Introductions and conclusions are the big ones I want you to focus on. So look at the first couple paragraphs, the last couple paragraphs, and see how they start off the idea and how they wrap up the idea to help you write better introductions and conclusions. We'll have lessons about this later on. All right, so, and the biggest thing that these two also point out is there are obstacles that stand in their way of becoming successful. So it's not just necessarily that they put forth a lot of effort. They needed that extra effort because there are so many obstacles that got placed in their way for a variety of reasons that made it that much harder for them to overcome and gain their success, is that they had to go through these obstacles on top of that, which forced them to even put forth even more effort. So the Sherman Alexie one, so Sherman Alexie is a Native American, is an Indian author. He wrote this really, really good young adult novel called The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. I read it over the summer. It is one of the best YA books I've read in a very long time. I highly recommend it to anybody to read it. But he also authored this essay that we're about to read. He is a Native American. He's an Indian. He's probably the foremost, most successful Indian author in history. He has won a lot of awards for his writings, and he's written a wide variety of things. He's written music, he's written movies, he's written plays, he's written poems, he's written award-winning books. He's done a lot of different types of writing. And The Joy of Reading and Writing Superman in Me displays Alexie's characteristic mix of pop culture references and reflection on what it means to be an Indian in today's America. As you read, note how Alexie carefully crafts at first glance what might seem like a slight essay. Note especially the way images and phrases are repeated and the effect he constructs with these repetitions. So he's going to start us off, and he's going to kind of help establish where we're at. He's going to set the scene of where we are at, which is the reservation, and just kind of explain, like, even though like everyone on the reservation is poor, his family is poor, but compared to the rest of the reservation, they're kind of not as bad off as everybody else. Then he's going to talk about his father, and his father who is the part of the reason why he loves books. And then we get into the third paragraph, which is the second paragraph on page 12, which I'm actually going to read because it is one of my favorite paragraphs that you'll encounter in this entire school year. And if you struggle with trying to figure out what a paragraph is and what a paragraph needs to be, this is the paragraph for you to help wrap your head around, like, oh, whenever I write a paragraph, this is what needs to happen. I can remember picking up my father's books before I could read. The words themselves were mostly foreign, but I still remember the exact moment when I first understood with sudden clarity the purpose of a paragraph. I didn't have the vocabulary to say paragraph, but I realized that a paragraph was a fence that held words. The words inside a paragraph worked together for a common purpose. They had some specific reason for being inside the same fence. This knowledge delighted me. I began to think of everything in terms of paragraphs. Our reservation was a small paragraph within the United States. My family's house was a paragraph distinct from the other paragraphs of the Laberts to the north, the Fords to ourselves, and the tribal school to the west. Inside our house, each family member existed as a separate paragraph, but still had genetics and common experiences to link us. Now, using this logic, I can see my changed family as an essay of 7 paragraphs. Mother, father, older brother, the deceased sister, my younger twin sisters, and our adopted little brother. That is an excellent paragraph, and hopefully if you struggle with figuring out what paragraphs are, can give you a better idea of like what you need to include in a paragraph. That final line is one of my favorite. It's not, I don't like love it because it's such a great line. It's just a good line because you've learned so much about Sherman Alexie's life, his family, in just one tiny line there, and he packs so much information in there. Now, using this logic, I can see my changed family as an essay of 7 paragraphs. Mother, father, older brother, the deceased sister, my younger twin sisters, and our adopted little brother. You see his entire family, and he tells his family story in just one sentence there, and it's so elegantly crafted and so well put together. It's a great sentence, and one that is worth emulating, not necessarily stealing the ideas outright, but like trying to structure your ideas. He then goes on to talk about how he actually learned how to read, and it's not what you think. Like, reading is not just reading the words. Reading is understanding and comprehending what is going on. And you can read a wide variety of things, not just books and words. You can read a lot of stuff. And then it gets into he starts to establish some of the challenges he faced. he faces, some of the obstacles that start popping up in his way as he tries to get to success. There is another excellent line on page 13 that you would then go into. A smart Indian is a dangerous person, widely feared and ridiculed by Indians and non-Indians alike. Great line. In this paragraph, he does a really good job of weaving and having you playing with your emotions, using pathos to make you feel bad for him and the experiences that he experienced, but also feel bad for even people who bullied him and the people who persecuted him. It's a good dual element of sadness that is developed through this paragraph on page 13. And then the last paragraph I'm going to read from the Sherman Alexie book, or from the Sherman Alexie essay, is this one, because traditionally in the past I would have you answer a question about this, but this is the paragraph where you see growth mindset come into play, where you see, because growth mindset, keep in mind, growth mindset is you have the ability to grow your brain, and this is kind of where Sherman and Alexie explores that. I'm going to read the paragraph. There's a certain word that will be repeated 14 times, and it's a certain verb that's repeated 14 times. Keep an eye out for it, and it kind of shows you him having a growth mindset. I refused to fail. I was smart. I was arrogant. I was lucky. I read books late into the night until I could barely keep my eyes open. I read books at recess and then during lunch, and in the few minutes left after I had finished my classroom assignments. I read books in the car when my family traveled to powwows, basketball games. In shopping malls, I ran into bookstores and read bits and pieces of as many books as I could. I read the books my father brought home from pawn shops and secondhand. I read the books I borrowed from the library. I read the backs of cereal boxes. I read the newspaper. I read the bulletin posted on the walls of the school, the clinic, the tribal office, the post office. I read junk mail. I read auto repair magazines. I read auto repair manuals. I read magazines. I read anything that had words and paragraphs. I read with equal parts joy and desperation. I loved those books, but I also knew that that love only had one purpose. I was trying to save my life. So think of the verb that was just repeated so many times. That shows the amount of effort he had to put in and showed him having control over his brain and him growing his intelligence and growing his thoughts. Then we go to the conclusion, and the conclusion is a really good conclusion. He does a callback. So in the conclusion, the big thing that I'm looking for as your teacher in a conclusion, what most good authors do or good writers do with the conclusion, is this thing called a final comment. And it's just kind of lasting impact that you leave with the reader. And there's a variety, like if you could categorize them, and there's some that you could pull out and utilize. I was to categorize the one that Sherman Alexie uses right here, he is going to be doing a callback. And that's the final comment that he's going to reference something earlier in the essay at the closing to bring home his bigger point that he's trying to make throughout this whole thing. He has a brilliant job of doing that. Once again, this is an excellent essay that I am excited for you all to read. I love this essay. It's really good. All right, I am aware that Malcolm X is kind of a controversial figure, and I'm not having you read this because of any of his political beliefs or any of that particular thing. I'm wanting you to read this because of how he came to literacy, how he came to read, how he demonstrated a growth mindset, and how he became successful. And the way he did this is crazy and insane. Sherman Alexie showed a growth mindset. He put in a lot of work. Malcolm X put in a whole lot of work in order to be able to get out of the situation that he found himself in and overcome the obstacles that were placed in his way. I'm not going to read any super long excerpts from this, but there is one particular spot that I'm going to read, which would be on the back of the document I'm going to upload on Classroom. Anyone who has read a great deal can imagine the new world that opened. Let me tell you something. From then until I left that prison, in every free moment, if I was not reading in the library, I was reading on my bunk. You couldn't have got me out of books with a wedge. Between Mr. Muhammad's teachings, my correspondence, my visitors, my reading of books, months passed by without me ever thinking about being imprisoned. In fact, up until then, I'd never been so truly free in my life. It's a really good line, and hopefully one that will help you understand how Malcolm X is talking about success in his particular excerpt. So read the 2 essays, please. Take notes while you're reading them because you need to build meaning as you read. And so taking notes helps you establish the meaning that you're developing. You can use those notes to help you write the 200-word thing. So read the 2 essays, take notes over them, and then write 200 words. It's just 200 words for both essays equal 200 words. I'm not asking you to write 400 total for this. Just read both essays and write 200 words over how these essays explore the idea of success. And that is it for today. And I will then see you tomorrow.